Hello, and welcome to Styla's Malibu Sew Along. Malibu is a woven dress or top featuring princess seams and a sweetheart neckline. Malibu features a 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeter seam allowance, unless otherwise stated. Before beginning, make sure all your fabric has been prepped. This includes transferring all notches and markings. Locate the 1 inch or 2.5 centimeter strip of fabric for the boning casing. Using a 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeter bias tape maker and an iron, create a 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeter casing. Cut the casing in half. Locate the lining back pieces. Place them next to each other, wrong side up, making sure the center back edges are next to each other. Draw a line 5/8 of an inch or 1.6 centimeters in from the center back edge. On this line, mark 5/8 of an inch or 1.6 centimeters down from the top and 3/4 of an inch or 2 centimeters up from the bottom edge of the fabric. Place the casing on the lining, wrong sides together. The wrong side of the casing is where the raw edges meet. Align the casing with the previously drawn line. Edge stitch the casing to the lining. Start at the top mark, sew down the long edge, touching the line. Once the bottom mark is reached, sew across the bottom short edge and back up the remaining long edge. Backstitch to secure. The upper short end remains unsewn. Locate the metal boning piece and end cap. Using a metal cutter, shorten the pieces to the required length. Attach the end caps to the boning by sliding them over the boning and squeezing them tight with pliers. Repeat for the other metal boning piece. Insert one piece of boning into each of the casings. Push them all the way down to the bottom. Top stitch across the top short end of the casing to secure the boning inside. The top seam is placed at the top mark. Make sure the metal doesn't get caught in the stitches. Cut the excess bias tape above and below the stitches. Be careful not to cut through the stitches. Repeat these steps for the remaining back lining piece. Locate the waist elastic casing. Fold the casing in half lengthwise, wrong sides together, and press. Baste the long raw edges together with a 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance. Locate the waist elastic. Run the elastic through the casing using a safety pin or bodkin. Align the ends of the elastic with the ends of the casing. Baste to secure each end with a 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance. Locate the flutter pieces. If desired, finish the straight edge with a serger. Fold the straight edge of the flutter 1/4 inch or 0.6 centimeters wrong sides together and press. Fold another 1/4 inch or 0.6 centimeters and press. Edge stitch to secure the hem. Sew a gathering stitch 1/4 inch or 0.6 centimeters away from the curved edge. Repeat with the remaining flutter. Locate the strap and place it right side up. Using a fabric marker, draw a 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeter line, 1/2 of an inch away from the short raw ends of the strap on each side. Gather the flutter the same size as the strap. Place the flutter on the strap with the right side of the flutter touching the right side of the strap. Ensure the gathers are evenly distributed and the hemmed edge of the flutter does not extend past the 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeter marking at each end of the strap. Pin or clip into place. Use a 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance and baste the flutter to the strap to secure. Pull the raw edge of the unsewn strap down, carefully scrunching the flutter inside the fold. Align the two long ends of the strap, sandwiching the flutter in between. Pin or clip into place. Sew to attach with a 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeter seam allowance, being careful to keep the flutter out of the way. Turn the strap right side out. Repeat these steps for the remaining strap. Press. Locate the chest elastic casing pieces. Place the main piece right side up and the lining piece on top, right sides together. Align the long edges of the top and bottom. Pin or clip into place. Sew to attach with a 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeter seam allowance. Leave the short edges unsewn. Turn the back elastic casing right side out. Press. Measuring from each side, draw two lines, either 1 3/4 or 4.5 centimeters for sizes 0 through 18, or 2 1/4 or 5.5 centimeters for sizes 20 through 32, away from the long straight edges, using a fabric marker. This will leave a 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter gap between the lines. Using a straight stitch, top stitch exactly on the lines, creating two elastic casings. Locate the two chest elastics. Run one end of the elastic through each of the casings using a safety pin or bodkin. Align the ends of both elastic pieces with the ends of the casings. Base to secure at each end with a 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance. Locate the main center front and front side bodice pieces. With the center front right side up, place one of the front side pieces on top, right sides together. Align them at the princess seams, starting from the top and bottom and easing the side pieces in between the notches. Pin or clip into place. Sew to attach with a 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeter seam allowance. Repeat for the other front side piece. Using pinking shears, trim the seam allowance and press the seam open. Locate the main back pieces and waist elastic casing. Place the back pieces next to each other, right side up. Make sure the center back edges are next to each other. Place the waist elastic casing on top. Align the casing with the bottom and side edges of the back bodice pieces. Pin or clip into place. Base the waist elastic casing to the back bodice pieces with a 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance, at the sides only. Locate the main front bodice. With the front bodice right side up, place the back bodice on top, face down, right sides together. Align at the side seams. Pin or clip into place. Sew to attach with a 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeter seam allowance. Trim the seam allowance and press it towards the bodice front. Lay the main bodice flat, right side up. Using a fabric marker, make a mark at the top of the bodice back 1/2 of an inch or 1.3 centimeters away from the raw center back edge. Locate the straps. With the bodice facing right side up, place the straps on top of the bodice front, right sides together. Align the short raw edge of the strap with the top of the front bodice. Center the strap over the princess seam. The side with the flutter will face toward the side seam. Pin or clip into place. Take the remaining end of the strap and align it with the top edge of the back bodice piece. Place them 1/2 of an inch or 1.3 centimeters in from the raw edge of the back bodice to meet the marks. Take care not to twist the straps. The flutter will face toward the side seam. Pin or clip into place. Base the straps to the bodice with a 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance and set aside. Locate the center front lining piece. With the center front wrong side up, iron on the neckline interfacing. Using a fabric marker, draw in the seam allowance at the center V. Turn the center front right side up. Locate the front side lining bodice pieces. Place one of the front side pieces on top, right sides together. Align them at the princess seams. Pin or clip starting from the top and bottom, and ease the side piece in between the notches. Sew to attach with a 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeter seam allowance. Repeat with the other front side piece. Using pinking shears, trim the seam allowance and press the seam open. Turn the front bodice right side up and place the back bodice pieces on top, right sides together. The boning should already be installed at this point. Align them at the side seams. Pin or clip into place. Sew to attach using a 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeter seam allowance. Trim the seam allowance and press it towards the bodice back. Locate the bodice main and the bodice lining pieces. With the bodice main right side up, place the bodice lining on top, right sides together. Align along the top edge and neckline. Make sure the center V meets and all the seams align. Nest the side seams with the lining seam allowance towards the back and the main seam allowance toward the front. Pin or clip into place. With the bodice lining facing up, sew to attach with a 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeter seam allowance. Make sure to sew exactly on the marked seam allowance. When the apex of the V is reached, bring the needle to the lowest position, lift the presser foot, pivot the bodice around the needle, lower the presser foot, and continue sewing along the second half of the bodice. Be careful the stitches don't go through any boning or boning casings. Trim the seam allowance and clip the center V, making sure to cut close to, but not through the stitching. Understitch the neckline if desired. It is recommended to only understitch from boning to boning and not going past it. Pull the lining up and away from the main bodice. With the main bodice right side up, place the chest elastic casing right at the top of the main bodice, right sides together. The top edge of the casing needs to line up with the seam between the main and the lining. Align one unsewn edge with the raw center back edge. Pull the remaining side of the casing to the remaining center back edge of the bodice and align. Pin or clip into place. Base to secure with a 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance. Pull the lining back down over the main bodice, right sides together, aligning at the center back edges. The chest elastic casing will be sandwiched between the main and lining. Pin or clip into place. Sew to attach with a 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeter seam allowance. Be careful the straps don't get caught in the stitches. Make sure the stitches are close to but don't go through the boning or boning casings. Clip the corners, cut close to but not through the stitches. Turn the bodice right side out. Make sure the corners are nice and crisp and press. Bring the waist elastic casing back to the correct position on the back bodice. Align the bottom raw edge of the main and lining. Pin or clip into place. Start at the side seam and stretch the casing to its full length. Pin or clip the stretched casing to the bottom of the back bodice. Baste to secure with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Keep the casing stretched along the back bodice. Using a straight stitch and 5 stitches, tack the top of the casing to the bodice right next to the boning. Backstitch to secure at both ends. Make sure the elastic does not get caught in the stitches. Be careful to not sew through the boning. Stitching through both the main and the lining, top stitch the waist elastic to the front bodice. Baste the front bodice, main, and lining together with a 3/8 inch or 1 cm seam allowance. Locate the back skirt piece. Using a straight stitch, stay stitch across the top of the skirt with a 3/8 inch or 1 cm seam allowance. This will prevent the skirt from stretching out. Locate the front skirt and pocket pieces. Finish the bottom edge of the pockets with a serger. With the front skirt right side up, place the pocket on top, right sides together. Align the sides of the pocket with the sides of the skirt and make sure the notches match up. Pin or clip into place. Using a 1/2 inch or 1.3 cm seam allowance, sew exactly between the 2 pocket markings. Do not sew past the markings. Backstitch to secure at both ends. Clip into the seam allowance at a 45-degree angle at both ends of the stitching. Clip as close to the stitches as possible without clipping through or past the stitches. Pull the pocket bag away from the skirt piece. Press the seam allowance toward the pocket bag. The top and the bottom of the pocket bag are not sewn. Understitch the seam allowance to the pocket bag. Be careful the little triangles at the top and bottom do not get caught in the stitches. With the pocket bag pulled away from the skirt piece, fold the pocket in half, right sides together. Align along the finished bottom edge, pin or clip into place. Sew to attach with a 1/2 inch or 1.3 cm seam allowance. Fold the pocket to the wrong side of the skirt piece. Pull the top pocket layer back to reveal the pocket opening. Pull all the little triangle tabs to the front at both ends of the pocket opening and press. Flip the top pocket layer back over the opening and align with the top edge of the skirt. Pin or clip into place. Baste the pocket to the skirt above and below the pocket opening with a 3/8 inch or 1 cm seam allowance. Make sure all 3 layers of fabric are aligned and the little triangle tabs are in the correct position. Repeat all steps for the remaining pocket. Turn the front skirt right side up and place the back skirt on top, right sides together. Align along the side edges and pin or clip into place. Sew to attach with a 1/2 inch or 1.3 cm seam allowance. Just before the pocket opening is reached, slow down and make sure to sew across the corner formed by the finished edge of the pocket and the little triangle tabs. Be exact. Continue sewing, making sure the pocket opening doesn't get caught in the stitches. At the end of the opening, make sure to sew across the corner again. Finish the seam. Finish the bottom raw edge of the skirt with a serger. Fold the bottom raw edge 1/4 of an inch or 0.6 centimeters wrong sides together and press. Fold it another 1/4 inch or 0.6 centimeters and press. Edge stitch to secure the hem. Pin or clip the pockets to the back skirt to keep them out of the way. Sew 2 rows of gathering stitches across the top of the front skirt only, 1/4 of an inch or 0.6 centimeters, and 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter away from the edge. The pockets will not be gathered. Gather the front skirt the same width as the front bodice. Make sure the gathers are distributed evenly. The back skirt remains ungathered. Turn the skirt wrong side out. With the bodice right side out, slide the skirt over the bodice. Align along the waist seam and make sure the front skirt meets the front bodice. Pin or clip into place at the side seams. Move the ungathered pockets from the back to the front skirt and align at the top and pin or clip into place. The gathered skirt will be sandwiched between the front bodice and the pockets. Continue pinning or clipping the gathered portion of the skirt and the pockets to the front bodice. The back skirt is attached to the waist elastic casing. Stretch one portion of the casing to its full length and pin or clip it to the skirt to secure. Continue doing so until the whole skirt is pinned or clipped into the elastic casing. The waist elastic will shrink each portion of the casing once released, creating loops in the skirt. This is normal, and they will need to be straightened while sewing. Sew to attach around the circumference of the waist with a 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeter seam allowance. Stretch the waist elastic casing while sewing, pulling the skirt loops flat against it. Make sure the elastic doesn't get caught in the stitches. Finish the seam. Flip the skirt down and away from the bodice, and press the front seam up towards the bodice, and the back waist seam down towards the skirt. This will help the skirt fall nicely at the waist. Top stitch the skirt to the front bodice if desired. Thank you for sewing the Styla Malibu pattern with us today. We hope to see you again next time.